Sex becomes one long orgasm. Hey guys, I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can magnetize your ideal life. Make sure you get my free ejaculation control course through the link in the description below. If you're interested in learning about sexual mastery, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that bell icon to stay notified when I release new videos every week. In this video, I'm going to talk about Tantric Orgasm. What is it? What does it feel like? And how can you experience this yourself? I always had a fascination with Tantra and with this sort of idea of sacred sexuality, conscious sexuality, right? And this really, I think, stemmed back into my early teenage years. And I remember watching the movie American Pie. I think it was the second one, right? I was like 14 at the time. I was just, discovering my sexuality. My hormones were coming online. I discovered masturbation, orgasm, kind of like a kid in a candy store, right? So I remember watching this movie and, one of the characters, he's learning to have tantric sex. He's trying to prepare for a tantric ceremony with, one of the other guy's moms, right?
Tantric? What the fuck is tantric?
And so he's like meditating and chanting these mantras. And I remember he says in the movie, he's like, Tantra makes sex feel like one long orgasm. And that, really hooked me. I was like, what? Like, is that possible? And ever since then, the word Tantra was ingrained in my mind. And in my early 20s, I started to really explore the spiritual path. I was getting into yoga, I was getting into meditation, I was learning, how do I get into these heightened states of consciousness without, having to take drugs and things like that. The sexuality thing was still kind of elusive to me. I always felt like there's gotta be something a bit deeper than just this, thrust, a sneeze out of my genitals and then I feel exhausted, right? It really starts to lose its luster, you know what I mean? Ejaculatory orgasms, they're so limited for men. They're so limited compared to what you can experience. It's like a raindrop compared to a tsunami. That really is, the ejaculatory orgasm. So I'd heard about Tantra, right? This word had been ingrained in my mind and it was very difficult for me to really find much information. I remember looking online. I remember I'd find videos of like some creepy looking dude, chanting and doing mantras while he's like, masturbating a woman or something like that. But it was never quite like, I don't think that's it, right? So many years of like seeking, looking, and one day I came upon Montauk Chia's book, Multi-Orgasmic Man, which of course opened me to the idea that men can experience orgasms without ejaculating and that sexual energy is something that should be conserved. It's something that should be recycled and used very consciously instead of just carelessly spending it. And that really resonated with me. It started to completely change the way that I viewed my own body, that I viewed sexuality. And I realized that I was just kind of chasing this very elusive high, so to speak, right? That ejaculatory orgasm, it's so fleeting and it leaves you depleted. And it's just never quite the satisfaction you're looking for, right? So I started reading this book and I found it very helpful. I learned a lot from it. I was practicing some of the exercises and, I saw some good results from it, but it was still not enough for me. It's really hard to learn these things from a book. So I kind of set out on a journey to study with teachers. And I ended up having this kind of journey to Hawaii, right? It was winter. I live in the northwestern US and it gets very cold in the winter and I was trying to escape from winter. So I was like, I'm gonna go live in Maui for a winter. So I was looking at some places to stay in Hawaii and there was a place that was owned by a couple who claimed to be Tantra teachers. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna learn, Tantra from masters, right? And this ended up being the lesson of, people saying words, but actually having actions that are something else, right? Not everyone who puts themselves as a master or a guru embodies that, right? And this was a good lesson for me, I think, because it's easy to like, you hear someone talking about things and they're, repeating all these words and talking about chakras and kundalini and you're like, oh, they must be so aware. But then you understand that they have their shortcomings. We're all human. We all have our things and no one's perfect. So after living at this property in Maui for 3 or 4 months, I left a bit disappointed. It wasn't quite the masterful, Taoist and Tantra teacher I was looking for. And I ended up studying with a man named Michael Wynn, who co-wrote several of Montauk Chia's early books, specifically Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male's Sexual Energy. And studying with Michael completely changed my trip. This is a guy who was really walking his talk, teaching very practical, a very realistic approach to cultivating sexuality in a conscious way. In the Tantra scene, it's easy to get kind of overly mystical, talking about deities and goddesses and gods. It can get a bit out there for some people, right? But I really resonate with the Taoist, sort of tantric practices because they're very grounded. Instead of working with deities, the Taoists work with natural forces like the sun, the moon, right? It's a direct connection with the life force instead of having to kind of go through this deity, right? But specifically, I learned how to open the energy channels of my body, and that was a very important prerequisite for being able to experience higher orgasm. Because the thing is, we all have these energy channels, moving through our body. It's what keeps us alive. It's like the electrical grid of our body, essentially, right? If it goes down, we're no longer alive. So when these channels get blocked up, things don't flow. We experience disease, we experience stress, emotional tension, things like that. But on a sexual level, when our energy channels are very closed, we tend to have a very limited expression of sex and sexuality. I think you're probably here watching this because you want to open to a new experience of sex, a new experience of orgasm, something that's beyond the 5-second sticky sneeze. That's the ejaculatory orgasm, right? So to do this, you must learn to open these energy channels of the body. You need to create a new pathway of flow in the body so that sexual energy can be expressed other than as, an explosion out your genitals, so that it can become this inward implosion, this resonance throughout your body. So of course, when I was reading Montauk Chia books, he talks about the valley orgasm, he talks about being this sustained orgasm, but it was very elusive to me. There wasn't a lot of description about how do I achieve that? How do I get there? And so in my early training with his practices, I feel like I was really looking for basically the experience I had in my mind was that it was going to be an ejaculatory orgasm without an ejaculation, right? Exact same experience minus the fluid coming out and feeling tired afterwards. But it took me a process of studying, it took me a process of training to understand that that's not it. That's a peak orgasm. It's very short-lived and it tends to deplete you afterwards. So it was really studying with Michael Wynn that cleared things up for me, especially because I understood the importance of the foundational work, clearing the energy channels, using Qigong practices, using breath work, meditation. You start to activate, so to speak, your body. You start to tune into this internal world, because what I realized was that during sex, I was so tense, so in my head. I was so goal-oriented. I was always trying to get somewhere, like, okay, I'm here, but I really want to be here. Okay, this feels good, but I really want to feel this instead, right? It's being disconnected from the present moment. It's being ungrounded. And so this internal training, and of course, studying sexual techniques as well, learning to channel the sexual energy, it completely changed me as a person, and it also changed my experience of sex. For example, when I started to have sex again, because I went through a long period of time where I was single, just developing these practices. But once I got into a relationship and got to experience the application, so to speak, right? I noticed how much more present and calm I was during sex, because I was no longer focused on, I need to, amp up the pleasure to an ejaculatory orgasm. I was more focused on my breathing. I was more focused on, what does my body feel like? Where am I tense? Where are things blocked? Okay, that feels good in my genitals. Can I move it through my body? And this is really the key to getting to these higher states of orgasm, this tantric orgasm, right? You can't get there by forcing it. You can't get there by projecting into the future, like, oh, I need more pleasure, more and more. So it requires a degree of openness. This is not usually an overnight process. This is not something that, one day, oh, that's it, right? This is something that unfolds within you. And again, it's really rewiring your system, because as men, we're so conditioned through porn. We're so conditioned to approach sex, like we approach sports or other things, right? It's like, you've got to just go for it, get in there and just, give it to your partner and rush into that ejaculatory orgasm. We tend to be so goal-oriented and so focused on the gratification of the ejaculatory release, because it feels like we've accomplished something. We get that short-lived, very intense orgasmic high, and then afterwards you just feel, kind of lethargic. Your desire has been satisfied and you don't feel aroused anymore, right? So, it's fun for a little while, but eventually that experience gets very old. With the more tantric experience, it's different. You're not focused on a short-lived, intense peak orgasm, or at least I recommend that you don't focus on that. You have to be okay with not ejaculating. In fact, for men, refraining from ejaculation helps you really build up a strong sexual charge. You build up more desire, and you build up the ability to experience this greater, basically activation of your sexual energy. It's hard to have these powerful full-body tantric orgasms when you're sexually depleted, which most men are if they're ejaculating every day. So you got to build that charge back up and then be okay with not ejaculating during sex. You have to learn to keep yourself relaxed. You have to learn to breathe, to feel your body. That's the biggest thing, is body awareness. And of course, the easiest way to train for this is to train by yourself. Solo cultivation, self-stimulation. Notice, what are your masturbation habits or your sex habits? Notice the things that you do consistently. What does your breath do? What is your mind focused on? What is your body doing? Are you tense? Are you feeling your body? Are you just sitting in a chair staring at a computer screen? You know what I mean? And start to change these habits. Most important thing is the breath. Deep belly breathing. Let out a sigh as you exhale. Make some noise. Just focusing on that is automatically going to massively increase your pleasure and your ability to last longer during sex. Move your body, move your spine. If you're self-stimulating, you're probably used to sitting stiffly in a chair, but that doesn't get your body involved in the process. So move around. Third, relax. So important to stay relaxed. A lot of guys, I used to have this pattern, they have this pattern of clenching their bodies during sex, especially the pelvic floor muscles. This causes you to build up arousal very quickly. It engages the sympathetic nervous system and you reach a peak orgasm very quickly. It intensifies your pleasure, but it's not sustainable. By relaxing and slowing down, you're able to build more energy without going over the edge. So as you feel this arousal build up in your genitals, take a deep breath and focus on the rest of the body. See if you can bring it up into the belly. Start to get this butterflies in the belly sensation. Bring it up into your heart center. You focus on emotions of gratitude, of joy, of an expansion. It will amplify your sexual experience. Bring it up into your head, enhancing your creativity, your thinking. So whenever you feel pleasure during sex, focus on that. Don't focus on, I need to bring it to the next level. Simply focus on what you're feeling and tell yourself, yeah, that feels good. Take a deep breath, maybe exhale a moan or a sigh, and notice what that does to that sensation. And this is how you really build to full body orgasm states. It's not by forcing and clenching muscles in a certain way. It's not really a technique that will bring you there. It's really just an ability to open up and relax so you can get into this deep orgasmic sort of state. When you're with a partner, this is really where the rubber meets the road. This is where you're most likely to have intense orgasmic experiences. For me, I was kind of blown away by how deeply connected and emotional the experience becomes. Because again, I was used to having sex as very mentally approached, obsessive in a way. I was a porn addict in my teenage years, in my early 20s, and all this sexual imagery. We get really obsessed with imagery as men. We require imagery to be stimulated, and this really kind of gets us stuck in our heads, and it trains us only to experience peak orgasms. So being able to engage your other senses is very important. What are the sounds that you're hearing? What does your body feel like? And not just your penis, not just your genitals. What does your entire body feel like? Where are you tensing up? Because it's the tension in your body that starts to short circuit you. So it's like, can you relax and release on a deeper level? And then also, most importantly, are you connecting from your heart with your partner? This is a huge part of the picture. If you don't feel trust, if you don't feel emotional connection to the person you're with, then it's going to be very difficult to get into any sort of profound experience. This is where a lot of men struggle because as men, we're often conditioned to become very robotic in a way. We're told to not feel emotions, don't express ourselves, and just shut down our heart center, right? A lot of men are very shut down in their heart center. It's about reconnecting to that ability to emotionally connect, both with yourself and with your partner. There's a difference between being an emotionally open and available man, supportive, versus being needy and very clingy type of person, right? There's a distinction there. And so during sex, instead of focusing on putting on a performance, instead of focusing on, trying to look like a porn star or act like a porn star, focus on connecting with your partner. Look them in the eyes, tell them how you feel about them. Feel a connection from your heart centers. Bring your awareness into your heart. Feel it merge with their heart center. Feel the emotional connection. And then when you merge that with the physical, the physical sex that's happening, it starts to become much more multidimensional. Breathe together. Take deep breaths, make sound. And of course, communicate with your partner about this. Say, hey, I want to have a session where we're not, necessarily trying to reach intense orgasms, but just focused on connection and opening up to new experiences. And you'll notice that when you engage in sex this way, it's so different than, just thrusting in your partner like an animal, ejaculating, and then, well, I'm exhausted, I have no more desire, I'm ready to go to sleep now, good night, honey. It's a different experience. Not that I'm saying you can never do that, that's fine, that can be enjoyable, but when you have this other experience where orgasm, or at least ejaculation, is not the goal. The goal is connection to your body, connection to your partner, connection from your soul. And this is where you really get into deep states. So to me, it feels like, I get into one of these deep, tantric full body orgasms. It's like this it's like something just washes over my body. I start to get like butterflies in my stomach. I just start to feel the orgasm in my stomach. I start to feel a heart connection to my partner. It's very emotionally open, and my whole body often starts to pulsate. It feels like we're floating through space. Time becomes very altered. My senses become altered. Sometimes it feels like we're underwater, and these experiences have become extremely, extremely powerful at times, much, much superior to the ejaculatory orgasm. Again, it's the raindrops compared to the tsunami of experience, right? Because this experience starts slow, it can be very subtle. So it's easy to overlook it. It's easy to say like, well, nothing's happening, I just need to thrust away. So it's a process of opening to deeper and deeper levels of this orgasmic experience. Start to redefine orgasm as simply being a pleasurable sensation in the body, a pulsation of pleasure that's outside of the ordinary experience. And now you're liberated in a sense because you drop all these expectations. You're now able to enjoy the present moment more and what is happening. And it's also very important that you do this in a time where you feel relaxed, where you have the space and the time to really go deep into the experience. So whether you're by yourself or with a partner, make kind of a ritual out of it. Give it a sacred space, right? Instead of just, oh, I've got 5 minutes, let's bust this out. That's not gonna work. So maybe take a hot shower, a hot bath, burn some incense, put on some essential oils, light some candles, play some gentle music, and set aside, minimum of 30 minutes. I would say an hour is much better, even longer than that, so that you really have this sort of space to go into a deep experience. Most guys' experience of masturbation and sex is very rushed. It's like, oh, I'm horny, I need to satisfy this right now. I'm gonna rub one out, or I'm gonna thrust into my partner and release this urge. It's very unfulfilling. Instead of that, it's, okay, I'm gonna take my time with this. First, I'm just gonna breathe, relax my body, release all tension, release everything from the day. And then, okay, I'm gonna touch myself slowly, or have my partner touch me slowly. I'm gonna touch my partner slowly. And oh, how does that feel? Breathe that energy in. Oh, the arousal's growing, slowly growing. I'm gonna breathe that through my body. It's just a completely different experience, taking your time with it. I'm not saying you can never get into like fast, intense sex. You certainly can once you learn how to hold this sexual charge without overheating and ejaculating, right? But in the beginning, it really helps you to slow down, to be very meditative with it. That's why I always teach Qigong, meditation, and breathwork practices, because they train you to develop that mind-body connection and that meditative sense that you need to have a deeper sexual experience. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you're interested in learning more about how to experience deeper states of orgasm, how to control your ejaculation, have non-ejaculatory orgasms, and really open up the energy channels of your body so that you can have this full body pleasure, check out my 6-week course, Multi-Orgasmic Man. I open registration every 3 months. I'll put more information in the description below. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment below. Have you ever experienced a tantric orgasm? I'd love to hear it. Have a great day, my friends.